Hello and welcome to another episode of Beacon of Creation, a weekly podcast on game design through the lens of Magic the Gathering. I'm Juliet.
And I'm Marcus, also known as Mark Confidant.
And I'm Brad, otherwise known as Red Bay.
And welcome to our second episode in this series, where we are going to be looking at some of the other guilds of Ravnica, but wait, not guilds of Ravnica. We're looking at maybe a little bit of Guildpact. Marcus, I would like for you to pick for me one of the mechanics that I'm going to be reading to you. For the Is It League, perhaps the most magic designer of the Ravnica guilds, in the past we've seen the mechanics replicate, which has a cost. When you cast this spell, copy it for each time you paid its replicate cost. You may choose new targets for the copies. We have Overload with a cost. You may cast this spell for its overload cost. If you do, change its text by replacing all instances of target with each. And Jumpstart. You may cast this card from your graveyard by discarding a card in addition to paying its other cost. Then exile this card. So Marcus, I'd like you to pick one of these mechanics for Red Bay.
Well, at the risk of being mean by giving a complicated text-changing mechanic, I'm going to give you Overload, because I think it's cool.
Great. Red Bay, I'm going to have you design a Overload card. And for you, Marcus, I'm going to have you design a card that has both Replicate and Jumpstart. I'm putting 2 minutes on the clock and begin. One minute left. Seconds left. And time. So, I would love to hear our card with Overload, a very exciting and possibly one of the most successful of the Is It keywords.
Sure. So my card's name is Time After Time, 1 and a blue for an instant, with choose target permanent or suspended card. For each card chosen this way, add or remove a time counter from it. And it has Overload, 2 blue, blue. And then I've got a picture in my head of a whole bunch of clocks overlaid on top of each other, Mobius strip style stairs, and everything's very confusing. And
So this is the target in the text is permanent or suspended card.
yes.
So the overloaded version of this, you can put a time counter on every permanent on the battlefield.
Yes.
Everybody's lands are +1 time counter now.
Or you can remove a time counter from every permanent as well. Yeah.
Mhm, mhm.
So you can recast this in order to get rid of all those counters you littered all over the table.
Or competing time after times against one another. I'm in my time counter control deck, and, your opponent brings in time after time out of the sideboard to undo my, you know, presumably effects that say lands with time counters on them are basic mountains or
Yeah.
something.
We're dealing with the 4 copies of delay metagame.
I also don't know, like, if you say okay, if you put a time counter on every land on the battlefield, and then you have a, like, Magus the Moon, Blood Moon effect that says all lands with time counters on them are basic mountains, does that operate at a different layer than the existing Blood Moon sort of thing because it checks for counters at a certain stage? Because I know, those abilities and those effects are really weird layer-wise with, like, losing ability effects.
I believe that it still ends up being relatively normal because the layers, for those who don't know, go copy control, text, type, color, ability, power toughness. So it's still affecting type, and then as a knock on effect of that, stripping or granting abilities.
Mm.
But bear in mind that usually I have to do like several gatherer searches and question my life choices if I want to come to any definitive answer on a layers
Sure.
question.
We just need to add, layer counters that change the layer of certain effects
How
on
about
the battlefield.
you remember how walls used to necessarily have defender?
Uh-huh.
What if ogres just had additional layers?
That is
They're like
terrible.
they're like, "Parfait." Mark Confidant, can you please read for us your card?
My card is Chronologia Fragilistic Expialidocious for 1 blue. It's a sorcery. It says choose a phase. There is an additional instance of that phase after this phase. It replicates for 2 blue, and it has jumpstart.
Okay, which backwards is Sua Kodalai Pexit Siligar Philano Orc?
I trust you.
It's important to know your supercalifragilisticexpialidocious backwards, which is Sua Kodalai Pexit Siligar Philocrebus. So, can you read for me the actual text of the card again? Because I was doing linguistics math in my head.
The actual text of the card is at sorcery speed, choose a phase. There is an additional instance of that phase after this phase. For context, I believe the phases are beginning, main, combat, and end. I believe those are the phases. There may
Mhm,
be a different term for the one at the end because there's the end step.
mhm.
Regardless, it also has replicate, 2 blue, and jumpstart. I definitely during the time didn't do a quick lookup of Sphinx of the Second Sun in order to double check phasing templating or phases
Mhm.
templating.
What is it? Is it Eon Hub? Is Eon Hub the one that removes upkeeps? There's one of the, like, mirrored in block cards that gives you an
Yeah.
extra.
Players skip their upkeep steps.
Right. Oh, that's steps rather than phases. I see.
Yes,
Yeah.
for this it's phase, so you can get yourself kind of a budget extra combat for 6 blue, or if you have a gajillion mana, you can take a bunch of kind of turns because you'll get all the phases again.
Mhm.
And the jump start makes it cheaper to get whatever phases you're wanting to get out of it. And you can also first main phase cast this as a kind of free draw spell because it'll untap all your lands in a beginning phase and draw some cards. So if you have like 9 mana, you could get 3 beginning phases if you really wanted to.
This seems pretty wild if you have enough mana. It feels a little bit, I mean, all cards are blue, but blue being able to just be like, "Here's extra combat phases," but I guess this is like a subset of take an extra turn, right? This is just like a subdivision of that?
I think that's a fair take, though. I think giving the replicate cost red instead might be a good idea.
Mhm. I think that makes sense. Especially if we're in, like, an is it space in particular.
Mhm.
Alright. Both of these things are fun. I think I'm gonna go with Marcus's on this one because I think it's it's a little more audacious in that is it E sort of way. I think the time counters thing is very fun, and it's very blue-red and, Joyra sort of setup, but it's like you're getting an incremental gain rather than a explosive gain, if that makes sense? Though, I don't know, maybe the overload onto all permanents and a good number of cards in exile simultaneously is a pretty ambitious top end sort of approach. Alright, let's see here. For this next one, we're going to be looking at the Gruul clans. Their mechanics have been Bloodthirst with a number. If an opponent was dealt damage this turn, this permanent enters the battlefield with that number of +1/+1 counters on it. They've also had Blood Rush, which is a channel-esque ability. Its cost, discard this card, target attacking creature gets da 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 da, which is typically on a creature, and it gives kind of that creature's stuff to the attacking creature that you're targeting. And Riot, which is a proper keyword, with this creature enters the battlefield with your choice of a +1/+1 counter or haste. So, Red Bay, I would like you to pick one of these mechanics.
I'm gonna pick Bloodthirst.
Great. So, Marcus, I would like you to design for me a Gruul card. This Gruul themed card, not a, doesn't have to be explicitly green red, but a Gruul themed card with Bloodthirst. And Red Bay, I'd like you to design for me a Gruul themed card with Blood Rush and Riot. You have 2 minutes. Begin. 30 seconds left. And time. All right. Marcus, I am really excited to hear your Bloodthirst card.
My Bloodthirst card is called Rubble Belt Diamondback. It's a red and a green for a snake creature. It has Bloodthirst, Menace, and Vigilance. That is, if an opponent was dealt damage this turn, this creature enters the battlefield with a Menace counter and a Vigilance counter on it. It also has Death Touch and is a 3/1.
3/1 Death Touch for red and a green. That if you've dealt a creature is also a 3/1 Menace Vigilance Death Touch.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Very fun. And Red Bay, I would love to hear your Blood Rush Riot card.
Okay, I've got Zerta Rioter, red and a green for a 1/2. It has Riot, so this creature enters the battlefield with your choice of a +1/+1 counter or haste. And then it has Blood Rush for 1 red, green, and discard Zerta Rioter from your hand. Target creature gets +1/+2 and has tap. Add any combination of red and or green to your mana pool equal to this creature's power and that's all until end of turn. And then it naturally has tap. Add any combination of red and or green to your mana pool equal to this creature's power.
So for red and green, it's a 1/2 that has this tap ability that on its face is just adding 1, but if you've rioted a +1/+1 counter onto it, it's going to be tapping for 2 mana?
Yes.
Great. And then, okay, you can spend 3 mana to give that ability to an attacking creature?
Oh, the Blood Rush is attacking, isn't it? Yes.
And
I messed
with
that up.
green's got vigilance since,
Sure.
since I think,
Not as
Blood
potent
Rush was
though.
red. Mhm. It would be interesting to then I think, like, a hybrid of that would be, like, you spend 3 mana, and then you add red or green equal to that attacking creature's
Hmm.
power? Like a direct ritual sort of thing? I think you end up in kind of like Seething Song territory, but, like, a Seething Song, even if, like, the mana stuck around your second main phase, that you had to cast targeting an attacking creature, like, and then you're using up that phase, that you can't, like, put out a big, permanent and then attack with it that turn. I think there's something in that space that could be interesting. I don't know that it would follow the exact template that we've seen Blood Rush do, but it's an ability word, you can you can wobble things around.
There's a trickiness to Blood Rush in terms of like trying to get it so that the for anything less than the most simple effects, trying to get it so the vibe works out correctly. If you
Mhm.
want to like have the Blood Rush kind of cheat a little bit and do the thing, but not precisely templated it as it is on the other, like when you play it out.
Right. Which makes me want to maybe do, um I'm thinking of, I wanna say it's Bear Umbra? There's other stuff, sort of Feast of Famine, something in that space where it's like the creature itself, the Zerta rider itself and the attacking creature would get, when this deals combat damage, like, untap lands equal to its power? Some way of, like, "Hey, this ends up working as a mana creature, but you're attacking to be able to do it, to do that." There's something there, and then the hasting kind of matters on the attacking side rather than just as a tap ability,
Hmm.
maybe?
I was thinking of it kind of in the same sort of vein of like when it attacks in, you add mana equal to its power. That mana doesn't leave as steps and phases as fate.
Mhm.
That mana doesn't leave as steps and phases end. But also, then you could have the Blood Rush just add the mana and do the mana doesn't leave at the same time. And it's like it's a little bit different from how Blood Rush has been done ordinarily, but I think it passes the vibe check. I'm not positive though.
It just changes the timing.
Yeah.
Hmm. Mhm. The upside of not tying it to, combat damage, we could open up combat damage creature play or anything, but if we don't tie it to that, instead tie it to attacking or just target attacking, means we can fuel that mana into, like, fire breathing sort of stuff
Yeah.
or root wall abilities. or I guess other Blood Rush stuff if you're chaining this 3-mana Blood Rush into a 5-mana Blood Rush.
Finally,
That
the
sounds pretty
gruel
sweet.
answer. Yeah, I want to discard my entire hand this combat. Thank you very much.
Mhm, mhm. Imagining the world where Hellbent was the red-green mechanic and Bloodthirst was the black-red mechanic in, like, original Ravnica block, and what we might think of, like, the Gruul identity as being like, yeah, you they're the get everything out of your hand. Why would you care about things in your hand? Like, get it onto the battlefield, discard it into the graveyard, just wreck things, kind of direct sort of idea.
Hellbent and Blood Rush together sounds really dope. That would also work in like a guild alliances sort of Ravnica Mastersy something or another.
Mhm. I just genuinely like, I don't know why I never thought of this before. Just make Hellbent the Gruul, like, thing, and then we just always think, and then, like, Bloodthirst would set up Spectacle later on that, like, oh, in the past, we just had Bloodthirst as a Rakdos thing that you're trying to deal damage, you get, like, a bonus if you've done it, and now it's Spectacle, it's like Bloodthirst, but for spells, like, I don't know, there's something there.
It makes the Bloodthirst into um, Unleash also make a little more cohesive sense in like
Mm,
the Rakdos story. Like when you look at Unleash and you look at Hellbent, there isn't a lot there thematically tying or mechanically thematically
mhm,
tying them together.
and instead it would be, the +1/+1 counter is the through line for Bloodthirst into Unleash, and the opponent being dealt damage is the through line from Bloodthirst to Spectacle. Yeah.
Is a little bit of that scavenge onto um, an Unleash card sort of vibe, though, where you can kind of end up with Bloodthirst accidentally faltering some of your creatures.
Yeah.
Mm. If you had both Bloodthirst and Unleash literally on the same
Oh, yeah,
creature.
fair enough. Or like on things that granted one another. I know when they went to
Mhm,
like Return to Ravnica, part of the decision making process was, hey, we want these things to be slightly synergistic if possible.
mhm. Maybe also thinking, what if Unleash was like, as long as it has a +1/+1 counter, it has Menace and can't block.
Oh, how suspicious.
Yeah, good point. Now that you mention it. All right. Next up, we're going to be looking at the Orzhov Syndicate. Those mechanics are Haunt. When this creature dies, exile it haunting target creature. Yeah, that's all the keyword is. And Extort. Whenever you cast a spell, you may pay white or black hybrid. If you do, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain that much life. And Afterlife with a number. When this creature dies, create number 1/1 white and black spirit creature tokens with flying. All right. I think we're back to Marcus. If you'd like to pick one of these mechanics.
I think I will give Haunt to Red Bay.
Great. Marcus, I would like you to design a card with Haunt, and Red Bay, I would like you to design a card with Extort and Afterlife. You have 2 minutes. Begin. 1 minute left. time. All right. Let's give this a try. Marcus, I would love to hear your haunt card.
My haunt card is Deathless Debtor. It's a single black for a 1/1 creature human citizen with haunt. And when this creature or the creature it haunts is dealt damage, create a treasure token.
Is dealt damage. Huh. And what was the power and toughness on that?
This is a 1/1.
Hmm. Mm-hmm. So it can't really be dealt damage more than once on itself.
Yeah, but it can haunt anything.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Very appealing. So the other thing doesn't have to die or exile or anything like that. It can just be dealt damage. So you can potentially keep recouping the gold, or I guess in this case the treasure, as you keep gathering that tithe. Very exciting. Red Bay, I would love to hear your Extort and Afterlife card.
Sure, I've got Archangel of Viscopa for 2 white and a black. It's a creature angel 4/4. It has flying, and token creatures you control have extort, and non-token creatures you control have afterlife 1.
Ooh. So your creatures die off and turn into spirit tokens that effectively have extort. And then as you cast new additional creatures, you can spend the extra money on the extort for all of the spirits that you have to drain your opponents out. Or you can just go max tokens and skip the, the creature part if you're just like constantly putting, what is it, like hard evidence out there. Though I guess you might want to do, what's the new Thrabe Inspector called?
Novice Inspector.
Yeah, there you go. You get that out, and so then you can, like, spend the thing, and then you're spending your extra mana around, you're getting more stuff out. I think you could probably pull off some neat little things around. I always think of Extort as you want all of your cards to say "draw a card," so that you can just keep casting spells every turn regardless of how small they are. Is that sort of idea? These are both very fun cards.
They're synergistic too.
Mhm. The treasure you can end up spending on Extort to actually drain your opponent out or to cast more spells. Suppose you could haunt onto the Archangel. That's not, I mean, that's like I don't know if that's what you meant by synergistic. Like any big creature you can put a a deathless debtor onto. These are exciting designs. These are, I think, slightly better designs than I'm used to seeing from either Haunt or Afterlife in particular, which is potentially speaking to the strength of both modern design sensibilities and Extort as two different engines for progress. So, coming down to our final round. Red Bay, I would like you to pick. Is it Gruel or Orzhov for Marcus?
Okay, I'm gonna pick Gruel.
Great. And Marcus, I would like you to pick Is it or Orzhov for Red Bay.
How spell slingery do you feel, Red Bay?
I, I'm it's probably one of my weaker decks, that's for sure.
All right, then let's go Orzhov.
Okay, appreciate it.
Great. Design for me a new mechanic for a future set that uses this guild. A new mechanic for this guild. You have 3 minutes. Begin. You can design card or like have card concepts to pitch, but the design challenge here is to design a mechanic. And time. All right. Let's go with Red Bay for our first mechanic.
Okay, I got a kind of a card concept to go around it. So we've got a creature, human cleric for white and a black. It's got lifelink. Sorry, it's a 2/2. 2/2 lifelink. We got penance. Whenever a source other than combat damage causes you to lose life for the first time each turn, draw a card.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. So you can use this against yourself a lot and easily, right? Is that's kind of the
Uh,
idea?
yeah,
Like that you would be like, losing life intentionally to draw cards.
yeah. Thinking modern Death Shadow or something like that, where you're trying
Mhm.
to bin your life total.
A lot of little pay one life for different
Yeah,
things. Mhm.
Phyrexian mana probably a good friend to
Sure.
this card.
Shocklands or like a Caves of Koilos sort of idea.
Hmm.
Mhm. Very exciting. I'm fascinated by cards and like costing around penance as an idea. It's very fun. Marcus, I would love to hear your design.
My design is an ability word. It's not gruel, then die. And it is
Sorry.
when this card type deals lethal damage, Rider. For example, when Borborygmos Voracious deals lethal damage, put X +1/+1 counters on it, where X is its power.
Okay, I'm gonna apologize. I was laughing a lot. Can you read for me the mechanic again? It's not gruel, then die. What was the mechanics on that?
When this, whatever the card type of the card in question is, deals lethal damage, Rider. So, the thing that you get
Ooh.
as a
Mhm.
bonus.
Oh, wow. That's it. That's the
Yep.
okay. Lethal damage, of course, is, like, semi-defined, right, mechanically?
It's formally
Great.
defined. It's any amount of damage that is greater than or equal to the toughness of the thing in question, or I believe also lethal damage. I need to double check on this whether damage sufficient to kill a planeswalker is constitutes lethal damage.
Mhm, mhm. And, like, if I had 4 1/1s, blocking a 4/4, one of them would be dealing lethal damage?
Yes.
Okay, great. Interesting.
It looks like planeswalkers and battles can both take lethal damage.
That makes sense.
Nice.
And hypothetically, future-proofing something in the future, though I imagine they'll be iterating on battles for a long time before we have a 3rd or 4th kind of thing that can die in that easy way.
Yeah, but in 2032, when Mooples have arbitrary counters removed from them, then
Mm,
it'll work
mhm,
for that too.
mhm. And when basic lands enter the battlefield with with time counters on them, and when you remove the last time counter, they permanents don't have vanishing, but as soon as you put a time counter on a permanent, they gain vanishing. And whenever they're dealt damage, you remove that number of counters, loyalty counter style. Of course, that's the way it will work. That's fascinating. I'm going to share the is it mechanic I designed to round out the trio, which I don't love the name, but I'm working on it. My name is Charged. The mechanic is this permanent has ward N and can't be blocked except by N or more creatures, where N is the number of instants and sorceries in your graveyard. So I guess it should be X since it's not N being set at the beginning of the ability.
Hmm. I think I have a slight note on that.
Mhm.
I would find it interesting if it was different mana values among instants and sorceries.
Ooh, writing the script. Different mana instance. Yeah.
That helps tame the scaling a little bit. I was thinking it might be hard to block um, when
Yeah.
that is it. Spellslinger deck gets like 3-ish instants or sorceries in the graveyard.
Mhm. I'm
I think it
mhm.
also might chop the linearity off a bit, where like the diminishing marginal utility if you already have 4 out of 5 of the total mana values among mana values in your deck or whatever.
Sure.
As opposed to like knowing that you could run a runner like 3 more spells if you mill 3 more cards.
It's a great design note. So I'm thinking more about this not gruel then die. It works kind of in a trampoly space, right? In that it's a way to leverage having high power and potentially high toughness creatures attacking into a board with smaller creatures and not just be chump blocked ad infinitum as a losing proposition.
Yeah. It also works on non-creature spells, so you can do like a burn spell with not grow then die, for example.
Oh, that
Or-
radically opens up things. Put on a pump spell where you're like giving the creature +3/+3 and not grow then die, do a thing so that your opponent has blocked and then you're like surprising them. Because like the offset is, well, your opponent just wants to not block as much as possible, right? But if it's on a removal spell, then it's not like they've got a choice. They could just be like, I'm not going to play out any of my creatures or block any of your creatures. And then you can be like, haha, I didn't even have any of those spells. You outthought yourself. I'm the Gruul player. Haha.
That's your punishment for thinking.
I like the opportunity for this in if it if you can make mini games out of it where your opponent is the one who has to think and you aren't the one who has to think, if you can make math for blockers out of this sort of thing, I worry, especially with it being in red green. I don't know whether it's just by association. I worry with that it could be a little bit too tribute y, if that makes sense.
Hmm. Like putting the wheel too much in your opponent's hands about what decisions they want to make.
Yeah, yeah. And that like if you're gonna put a cool story on a card of like, "Oh, when this card really goes off, it can do X thing," then your opponent can just be like, "I'm never going to let that manifest." I can play around that because blocking kind of requires that. But again, if you have it on enough burn spells or interesting burn spells, put that on a Rain of Embers, put that on a Pyroclasm, put that on a green Death Touch trick? Question mark? That might be too much, but
I was thinking
mhm.
like a defensive death touch creature where it's like, oh, I've got this creature that's got not grow then die, but I can just leave it behind, and then the downside to swinging into the death touch guy is bad enough that you just don't want to touch him.
Right, right, and that does open up additional space that Trample doesn't in terms of the ability to block. The ability to fight, it also works on, right?
Mhm.
It's not just
Yep.
combat damage. Okay, this is really opening up for me conceptually. Huh.
You can also fight your own creatures if you really, really need something to kick the
Ooh,
bucket.
yeah, put out some extra 1/1s, and then you play your Rain of Embers, your Pyroclasm, and I don't know, potentially end the game if you've got I imagine they would print some sweeper that has some face like, sweeper hits creatures, and then for each creature that you kill this way, you get to, like, throw some at the face. That seems like a very
Yeah.
Volcanic Fallout-esque sort of, Brotherhood and, like, "Hey, we're printing this to make a splash in standard and shape it in some way." Cool. How do we feel about penance not being locked behind a mana sort of threshold?
I mean, instant speed loss of life effects become kind of tricky there. Um, in general, I really like when like Ores of Effects reward life gain and life loss both,
Mhm.
but I'm not sure if then the hoop becomes like so wide open that you're just like you can trigger it twice a turn cycle consistently for till the cows come home.
It is limited to the first time each turn, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Hmm. Which
Yeah,
does stop it.
So it's like
Mhm.
if I were to restate it, like it'd be whenever a source other than combat damage causes you to lose life for the first time each turn. Rider, like it wouldn't be necessarily draw a card on
Oh.
every version of penance to kind of match up with Mark's terminology there.
Mhm.
yeah, I think that works well. And then I guess it becomes a little bit difficult with instant speed loss of life effects where it's an onboard trick, potentially.
Yeah.
Mhm.
There's like an inclination to make the riders kind of defensive there.
I wonder, like, would you also see I'm thinking of, the difference between creatures with landfall versus spells with landfall. Like, would you have, like, a creature with when this attacks, your penance, when this attacks, if you've lost life this turn, and it would still be, like, considered a penance ability?
That gets hard templating
Mhm,
wise. I honestly, this might be a controversial opinion, but I consider the spell riders on landfall to be um, kind of cracking the concept of ability words a little bit, like kind
mhm,
of leaning on them a little hard, and the rules text kind of gets some chips in it.
mhm. How do you feel about,
But I think it's
do you have an opinion on Seer's Sundial?
I'm gonna look that up on Scryfall
That's
just
the
shamelessly.
landfall with a mana, like, condition? Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay 2 if you do draw a card.
I feel like that's just it's giving you like a relief valve there, and I think that that's permissive as long as it has the stuff before the comma on landfall. It's good with me.
Mhm. But the instants are the Searing Blaze, Rest for the Weary, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think those are kind of cheating a little bit, not necessarily in a bad way if like the environment really wanted them, but like doing a thing where you stretch the definition of an ability word to make the ability word have more coverage.
Mhm. It would just be better to design different cards.
Yeah, or find a way to make it so that like you weren't having this templating strain if that's at all possible. At least
Mhm.
that's my opinion, but like I think that people are free to disagree on that.
I think like it appears that Wizards of the Coast even agrees with you because they haven't returned to landfall on an instant or sorcery since World Wake by the looks of it.
That's a good point.
Huh. Was landfall on instants and sorceries exclusive to World Wake? Like I know Zendikar had landfall, but I'm wondering if
Yeah, it looks like it was a
uh
a single cycle of common instants in Worldwake.
huh. So even there it was kind of like back when three set blocks were a thing, it was kind of indicative of like second or third set syndrome,
Mhm.
where like you had this mechanic, but it has the flu now, like version of
Mhm.
whatever it was.
I think all of these were playable instants. Maybe
Yeah,
Mysteries of the Deep a little bit of the least of them, but that has to do with the aggressiveness of that very specific format.
yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your designs. This has been a very exciting episode. Any plugs either of you want to do?
Um. Oh, try out Balatro if you haven't already. The demo for it is free right now, and it's a really good game if you enjoy card games and roguelikes.
I had that playing when Juliet jumped into the table chat.
Nice.
That's Balatro. You can look it up on Steam. And Red Bay, any fun projects you want to plug?
No, too busy mentally gearing up for Survivor on the Magic Set Editor server.
Hey, that's something to plug. Are you going to be a contestant for
Yeah,
MSC Survivor?
I'm signed up as a contestant. I'm really excited. I saw so Platy People is signed up as a judge, so gotta
Mm.
try and impress.
I'm excited
I'll be
to
rooting for you.
watch from the sidelines and not have anxiety every time there's a deadline to submit cards. But
That's a good stance.
we do have a slightly more collaborative or significantly more collaborative design thing going on right now. You can check out the You Make the Pack channel over in the Beacon of Creation Discord, where you can submit cards and vote on different cards as we do kind of a like exquisite corpse group building of a pack, one card design at a time. That is I've really been impressed by a lot of the cards designed for that so far.
Timing-wise, do you know when voting will close and whether or not this will drop before?
Future Juliet coming in here to say that as this episode comes out, we are designing cards and submitting them for slots 10 and 11 of the You Make the Pack booster pack, and then we'll be voting on all those cards, so that'll be really exciting. We also have just a few more days left in February's design challenge, which is Look Before You Leap year. Design a card with Lose the Game in its rules or reminder text. Bonus points for that are Leap of Faith, flavor it around one of the gods of magic, and Box of Chocolates, have it be modal. If you're listening to this, there's still time to submit a card and have a big influence on the other cards that end up being submitted for the rest of the pack. The direction is not yet fixed in the stars. It's very exciting. I also, as of yesterday, as of the way this math works, the first person shooter I made over the last 2 months has been released. It's over on itch. If you are a Friends at the Table fan who is like a passing familiarity with Song Fiel, the game will make sense to you. If not, it might not. It's one of those. But you can check that out at mousewifegames.itch.io, or more specifically, mousewifegames.itch.io/shape. But you can check that out there. So that's our podcast this week. You can join our Discord with the link in the show notes. Thank you both for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Same.
Great. Thanks for listening. And always remember, don't give your money